There we go. So obviously the aim of the session today is to kind of look a little bit into sort of collaborative working and exploring some of the kind of digital tools that we have that are able to help our pupils to be able to work collaboratively, either at school or also outside of school as well. So that's kind of the aim. I'm not going to keep you for the whole hour and a half. It'll probably only be about an hour, especially if there's only two of you. So we'll just see how we get through this. If you do have any questions as we go through, please either post them in the chat or unmute your mic. That's completely up to you. I don't mind. But it'd be nice to get some interactivity between us. So that's quite sometimes a bit strange when there's only a few people in the call. Okay, so I wanted to start just by asking, what does collaboration mean to you? So when I say the word collaboration, what do you think I'm talking about? Have you seen any nice examples in the classroom, or is there anything that you kind of want to see more of? So you can either post it in the chat or unmute. What does it mean to you?
Well, we've had children working on Jamboards collaboratively to develop vocabulary and share ideas. We've done the same with slides. So it's sort of that working together to share ideas and develop sort of ideas further. So sort of sparking off of each other.
Yeah, nice, really nice. I think that's really important. Again, I like that, the way you just said that, Michelle, about sparking off one another, because I think there are lots of children, and again, if we're linking that to pupil voice, I think there are, sometimes there are some situations in classrooms where you might ask a question, but you're always going to have those same children with their hands up all of the time, and it's natural for you to just constantly go to those children that have got their hands up. Actually, the ones that don't have their hands up are the ones that we really need to target, and by able to doing something like that is really going to help those children speak up a little bit more as well. So that's a really good one. Are you able to write in the chat? I'm just checking. Yeah, just checking that I had that enabled. So yeah, that's a really nice one. Any other examples of what collaboration might mean? All gone very quiet. That's fine. Don't worry. Great. Okay, so I think I'll move on from there anyway. That's fine. So when I was thinking about kind of this training, I was thinking about kind of what sort of things we could use in order to show you that children collaborating, I guess. And the one thing that I kind of thought of was that silent debate that you can do in the classroom. So it's kind of designed to be a bit of an engaging tool, and you have to choose your stimulus carefully about what you want the children to kind of ponder a question, and it can be a quote, it could be a problem, it could be an image, and I suppose typically that would be, you could have it on a really large piece of paper, like in a group situation, and then the children could have different coloured pens, and they could almost write what they think about a certain subject or thing. And going back to what Michelle was saying a minute ago about making sure that everybody's involved in that collaboration process. I've just put this quote here by Stephen Hawking that's saying that quiet people often have the loudest minds. And I think doing something like this will enable all of those children to participate, even the ones that don't want to speak up. So this was just a nice one that you could do either in the classroom with a piece of paper, or you could do it using the technology that we have now. And again, like when we're in situations like this where we can't actually be together in a room, maybe it's really nice to be able to do something like this online. And I'm going to use Jamboard as one of the examples, Michelle, as you were saying a minute ago. So I'm just going to show you this example here. This was one that I did with my class during a live lesson, whilst we were on a Google Meet like this during the lockdown. And it was all about the sinking of the Titanic. So we'd already done all the research about Titanic. They already had good knowledge about what would happen, what had happened, and how it had happened. And it was now a chance for them to kind of explore and kind of make their own opinion on what had happened. And this is a prime example of that silent debate. So rather than the children just shouting and arguing with one another, it's about being able to kind of put your ideas down onto paper. So you can see here that the blue post-it note says, well, I think it was Captain Smith, but somebody said that they disagree. I think it was the lookout because he'd forgotten his binoculars. And then someone had kind of said, but he did what he could. And they've kind of bounced off of one another's ideas. The ship was supposed to be unsinkable, so it was Thomas Andrews' fault. And it's saying, but this happened. He wasn't in charge of buying the materials. So it's all about bouncing off each other's ideas. And what I thought would be nice to do is kind of have a go at this. So we're actually going to have a go at one ourselves. I know there's only 3 of you in the call, but it's all right because you've got me as well. But we're actually going to have a go at this one. I thought this one was quite topical, that schools should close on the 2nd of December. And we're going to have a silent debate about that. So I'm just going to post the link in the chat. Just give me a second. It's going to take us to the Jamboard. Where is it? There it is. There we go. So if you just click the link, and it will take you to our debate. And then the idea is, obviously, it's supposed to be silent, but you put your opinion, and then we can all bounce off one another's ideas. We just use the post-it note, which is the 4th one down if you're not sure. So you can see there's already some sort of coming up now. So again, if you want to kind of say something about that. Really nice. I can see some really good sort of 2 different things happening at the same time here. And again, you could probably imagine what this would be like in a class environment, where, you know, you've got lots of children that have got lots of opinions. But again, it's just, and I suppose you can see sort of when you're typing, if you've got the whole class in this, yes, your initials do come up kind of in the corner, but it is quite difficult to see what child is saying what in a whole class situation. I mean, if you wanted to go back later and see who it was that had written something, then you could. But it's just a nice way for everybody to take part. There's no arguing over pens and who's writing and who's doing what. And it's just a really nice way of getting people's voice, really. And again, like, your more able can be challenged because they can really kind of sort of summarize their answers, whereas your lower ability, they could really, all they would need to write is yes they agree or no they don't agree, and again they've still given their contribution to that statement. So it doesn't matter kind of who you are, I guess, in the classroom. This is a really inclusive way of getting everybody's opinion on what they think. Is there anybody that is thinking kind of, oh, I could use that for this, or any examples of when you might use this? Please feel free to unmute if you want to.
I think sort of in a lot of our topic work where we do have sort of like these big questions that maybe start off a topic, it'd be quite an interesting way of sort of getting the children's opinions on where they think we're going and what they know, and, you know, maybe sort of countering some of their ideas as well. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's not as threatening if it's come from another child in the class as the teacher saying, oh no, you've got the wrong idea there, really. If another child says, oh, no, you can think of that a different way, I think sometimes they accept that a bit more.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah, that's I think they are a lot more accepting of their peers, aren't they, than you sort of saying no, you know. And even I've seen this sort of working even in like English, where you're trying to sort of up level like word choices and things as well, where, you know, can you think of a different word for said, and then they're sort of bouncing off one another in that way, or, you know, or try and think of a sentence and they're going, no, not this sentence, why don't you try this, and just giving like advice. So it's almost like that coaching, that peer coaching as well. So that was just one way that is a really nice way of collaborating and getting everybody's voice heard in the classroom. So I say it's quite easy to forget about those children that don't really like to put their hand up. So that's one way. I'm just going to come back to my slides. I think I've still got them on your screen anyway. There we go. And then another sort of way is to think about Nearpod. If you've not looked much into Nearpod at the moment, there are a couple of collaboration tools that you can use with Nearpod as well. And if you've not heard of Nearpod before, you can use it directly within Google Slides. So all you need to do is, when you're making your slides or whatever it is that you're doing, if you just click the add-ons button, which is located at the top, there's an add-on called Nearpod, and then you can add this content to your slides, so it almost forms like part of your lesson. And there are a couple of things within that you can do. So the first one is things like polls. So again, this is a good way of getting opinions quite quickly on what people think about things. So this one is just one which conveniently was fact or opinion about storms. So storms are frightening. Is that a fact or an opinion? So just a way of getting that quick opinion about something. But I suppose you could do that with anything. You could do that with something like similar to what we've just done, really. We could do one of, do you think schools should close, yes or no? You could see all the children that have put yes, and then you've almost got that starting point to be like, oh, well, Joe, why do you think yes? Or, okay, well, Jane disagrees. Jane, why do you disagree? Why do you think that? So it's almost that sort of starting point. And again, by giving everybody that option to take part and to give their opinion, you can then use that as your sort of talking point. And I suppose it's the same thing with kind of hands up, stand up on your chair if you think this, you know, that kind of thing within the classroom as well. And then the one on the right hand side of the screen you can see here now is very similar to what we've just done in Jamboard, but again it's just being able to get the opinions of everybody and making sure that everybody's giving their opinion. So what is a contraction? So that's something that I would probably put up at the very beginning of a lesson. And I would ask the children, what is a contraction? I wouldn't talk about what contractions were. I wouldn't give them any information about it so far. But then I would see what they already know, and then I would use that as a talking point. So you can see the examples that you've got below here was one I did with my class. So some of them some of them are already starting to get it. So I know that already at the beginning of the lesson that I can start moving those children on pretty quickly. But I've then got children that are saying they're not sure at all at this point of the lesson. So it might be that I might ask a couple more questions, but they're the children I'm going to target. And I'm going to target them straight away because they're the ones that weren't sure at the beginning of the lesson. It's just a quick way of knowing where your children are at before delving too much into the lesson. So that is Nearpod. And again, if you want any more kind of, if you don't know how to use Nearpod, then I can send you, there was that Leo app guide that was sent out, and that will give you all of the sort of training on how to use those tools. I won't have time to show you all of the tools and how to use them today, but if you needed to like go further and be like, oh, well, I want to use Nearpod, then just go ahead and have a look in that app guide, which I can post in the chat after if you need it as well. Another way, so if you haven't looked much into Adobe Spark yet, that's also a really nice way of kind of getting the children to sort of express themselves. So I'm going to show you an example now of one collaborative project that we did as a class for World Book Day. And the idea was for the children to be able to produce a book review based on a book called The Incredible Book Eating Boy, if you've not heard of it. And I suppose typically we might have asked children to write the book review. But again, I suppose it doesn't always give every child the voice to be that voice to be heard. And again, because we might have children that are struggling writers, or we might have children that don't really like reading that much, or again, we just want to engage them to be able to do something. And this project was a really nice way of being able to see that every child could take part in this. And what we did was we did some video in one day, and then we uploaded to Adobe Spark the next day. So we did it sort of in two different stages. But just while you're watching the video, I want you to just have a think about how these children collaborated on this. What was the benefit of it? Do you think there was more impact by doing that than there was of just writing the book review? I'm just going to mute my microphone. If you can't hear the video, can you just let me know in the chat?
Hello and welcome to Reading Rock's Reviews. Today we're going to be reviewing The Incredible Book Eating Boy! Henry wanted to eat books, especially red ones, but he ate so many and he didn't have time to digest it. So eventually he stopped. Then he found a half-eaten book, and guess what he did? He read it! Now for the best part, the highlights, and we're also going to tell you who we'd recommend it to. Wow, there's a lot going on here. Children under 10 would love this book because it had great humour and illustration. I also liked it when there were missing letters because he ate the pages, and we would rate it a 5-star. Delicious. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you soon. Goodbye!
Cheryl, you are mute. We can't hear you.
Thank you. Whoops. I just said that, I suppose, so I thought my question now would be, what's the benefit of doing something like that with children? What would the benefit be?
those that aren't very keen writers can sort of talk about what they feel and what they've read and what excited them about the book, and they don't feel sort of restricted by having to write it all. And maybe those that aren't keen writers are, might have a talent in being more dramatic or more, vocal.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I find that doing projects like this really benefit not just reluctant writers, but even children with EAL who are less reluctant to kind of use their voice. They're kind of put into a situation where they need to try and take part and do things as well. I've got a couple of other examples of that to show you a bit later on. But again, it's just like everybody can take part, and not everybody had to speak during that. You can see that little girl went along and picked up the book and said, "Oh, delicious." And it wasn't a big deal. We didn't need like loads. She didn't need to read and say lots and lots of things. But also just learning how to work together. And I think that's something that, I don't know if that's something you found in your schools, but I think at the moment, with the current kind of situation that we're in, we found that, because I work in year 3, and we found that a lot of children have almost forgotten how to do that, because I think they've been so used to sort of being on their own or being with maybe one sibling, but actually group work is something that they're still trying to kind of work on, and being able to work within a team without arguing is something that they still find quite tricky. And it's a skill, isn't it? It's something they need to sort of learn and be able to do. So by doing something like that, it's also boosting that kind of side to their kind of whole, we're trying to create these children that are not just writers. They're, they have all of those Leo outcomes that we're talking about. And by doing something like that, you're really kind of promoting those even further. So that's Adobe Spark. And again, just something to think about. And how you can use that with collaboration. There are loads of other things you can do with Adobe Spark as well. You can make posters, you can create websites. And again, they've just actually done a new sort of update to it where you can collaborate on it like you can with Google Slides and Jamboard and things like that, where you can have multiple people working on it at the same time. So that's another nice feature that you can do now as well with that. Great. Another one I was just going to quickly show you, because again, I find that this one is, I didn't put on anything to do with kind of Google Slides and things, because I figured that lots of you have probably already done quite a lot of work with collaborating on slides, because I think that and Jamboard, I suppose, is the go-to now where you can do that. But just wanted to kind of point you in the direction of Google Sites if you haven't heard of it already. And I suppose one thing that we did with this is, again, just a different way of children being able to collaborate. So I guess, typically if we were learning about the digestive system, like you can see here in my example, we might have asked the children to make a poster or do some research and make a report or something. And what we decided to do, or you might even get them to make slides about this, but again, just another way of getting them to collaborate onto a whole class Google site, which is like a website. So I'll just explain what we did, and then I want you to see if you can think about any problems that you might see with a class project like this. So we asked the children to do some research on the digestive system, which they've been doing over the course of the topic anyway. So this was nearer the end of the topic when they'd already kind of got all the information. So it wasn't you need to find out about something they didn't know and then spend the whole time copying and pasting off other Google sites. But it was about putting all of their knowledge that they'd learned over the course of the topic in one place. So we made the homepage together. So that was what was modeled to the children. So I showed them how to kind of make the heading and do the captions and insert a picture and things like that. But then what I did then was I gave each group an area of the digestive system. So there were 6 groups at the time. This was pre-lockdown. So 6 groups. Each group had a responsibility to look at eating, or the esophagus or the stomach. And then they had to make a page on the site to do with that. And by the end, we would have created this whole class Google site. So every single child would log into their Chromebook. And every single child would have access to this one document or this one thing. So my question I was going to ask is, what problems do you foresee using a whole class collaborative project like this? Could you see anything kind of going wrong with this?
Maybe children forgetting which page they're on and sticking it on someone else's page, or moving other people's work around. That's, quite often upsets them.
Yep. And what would you like? So in terms of moving other people's work, how would you resolve that? What could you do?
We quite often discuss it prior to them doing the activity, and sort of say, right, the rules are you stay on your own page, you don't move anybody else's work, you have to sort of collaborate together to work out what's going to go where, and discuss sort of actually how you're going to structure it, rather than just everyone puts everything in and it becomes a random mess. It's sort of having that sort of structure built into sort of maybe the planning, that they've got to know who's going to put work on which bit and where it's going to go.
Yeah, you've got that perfectly there, Michelle. I think assigning children roles within that group is really, really important. And that's exactly what we did here. So if they were doing eating, one person was responsible for kind of typing the information, or one person was responsible for finding the information that they'd gathered either in their exercise books or wherever they were getting their information from. One person was responsible for maybe finding a video that was going to be useful in kind of supporting the idea. One person was responsible for finding the picture. And then there was one person that was responsible for making sure that it was organised within that page. And I think in terms of the actual pages themselves, I haven't found in my experience, again, this probably differs in each class that you're in, but I haven't really found anybody having any problems with, once they're on their page, usually they can stick to it. The only one that sort of does happen sometimes, I guess, is the footer at the bottom of the web page, because if you edit that, it edits it on every single page. And sometimes the theme in sites, because if you have a theme, it goes on every page. So if a child accidentally uploads a picture to the theme as opposed to the section, then that can mess everybody else's stuff up. But again, just a key thing about Google Sites, obviously it's in real time. So what you could do is you just ask all the children to stop, and then you should be able to just press undo a couple of times, and it might hopefully take you back. Or you can use that time feature where you can go back to a certain time frame and get back to where you were before. And I did have one example a little while ago where one child deleted the whole lot, and that was an absolute nightmare. But again, because of that real time thing that you can have within sites and within slides, you can just go back to a certain time point and you can get it all back. So that's the benefit of it, because that wouldn't normally happen with other things that you might do. So that's Google Sites. And then there's just another example here in terms, again, of pupil voice and pupils collaborating, was with one of our clubs. So at CCJ, there's a history club, and they are children within year 5, and they wanted to look at the history of Ching Common over a period of time, because they'd found some like logbooks and things within school. They did some interviewing with people from the public. They found lots of people from the public had brought in old photos, which were just had in a big bag somewhere that they sifted through. And they actually worked together to create this website to present all of their work. And that was another really nice way of getting that group of children to collaborate on something that had purpose. And again, they were then able to share this with whoever they wanted to share it with, their teachers or their parents or whoever they wanted to show this to. So another nice way of showing that collaborative side of Google Sites. And then sort of moving on a little bit now onto kind of more onto pupil voice. And I suppose we did speak briefly about that when we were doing the Adobe Spark one. But if you haven't used Flipgrid yet, it's definitely something to look into, because I find that with Flipgrid, it really does give every child a voice. I was actually at Manor Park today doing Flipgrid with a year 3 class, and just seeing them react to, it's the first time they'd done it, just seeing them react to, having their voice heard, and you know, the picture of them going up on the board and them being able to express their opinion on something. It's just a different way of getting every child's voice. And I suppose I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of this and how you can use it. But the first one, this is a child who is EAL. And if I'd have asked this question, are aquariums good or bad, in the classroom, he wouldn't have been one that would have put his hand up. He might have put his hand up to say good or bad, but he would never have expressed why or what the purpose, you know, what he thought, because he would just be too shy. He just wouldn't want to do it. He wouldn't want to speak in front of his peers. So I'm just going to show you, just going to play this just for a couple of seconds, just to show you how much he sort of reacts to Flipgrid.
I think aquariums are bad because to make aquarium, you must catch sea creatures. When you're catching sea creatures, you might accidentally hurt it or kill it. Some sea creatures might like living in the aquarium, but some sea creatures doesn't like to live in the aquarium. They might.
So you can see he was really he was a lot more confident doing it like that than he would have been in class. He never would have done that. And again, this one was done during lockdown, but again, even within the classroom environment, they seem a lot more keen to express themselves when they're just talking at a camera. And I suppose we've got to kind of roll with the times a little bit now, because the children that we're teaching are within the they're in that technology era, I guess, where YouTube is a really big thing, and TikTok and things like that. And actually taking photos of themselves and recording videos is part of their kind of everyday thing. So why not use that to kind of promote learning a little bit more? And the children love it. And it's just a nice way of getting them to really express their sort of opinions. The next one I'm going to show you just quickly is one that we asked the children to kind of demonstrate how to stay safe when using with food safety. So in the kitchen, how would you stay safe? And again, typically, maybe if you'd have done this before, you probably would have maybe made a poster or written some bullet points or wrote a set of instructions on how to stay safe. But again, just being able to put this in video and demo it is really, really powerful.
So hello everyone, I'm going to be making a fruit smoothie with some apples, pears, and a few grapes. So first I had to cut them. They're already quite cut, but they're not in very small pieces, so I'll cut them. You have to be very careful with the step because they're hard to cut. You have to really cut them in half and then in quarter. And then you have these leftover pieces. So keep on cutting until you get small pieces that look awfully a lot like this. So first, basically, you have to cut this apple. As you can see, this apple has a seed taken out as well. You have to cut this in the middle, then cut it like this, and this.
So again, just another way of demoing how to do something. Again, that was another one that was done during lockdown, but just a really nice opportunity to kind of express in a different way. And then there are a couple of other ones here. Again, just other ways of showing pupil voice and making sure that children are taking part. So I guess with the next one I'm going to show you, this is a reluctant writer. So one that would if you ask them to come to the front and read out loud, she would struggle. Or if you asked her to write it down, she would probably struggle. And I guess it's just another way of getting children to express what they're actually trying to do, and actually their writing ability in actually physically being able to kind of express what the purpose of that writing would be.
Hi, wait, guys, you will never guess what happened to me today. I'm so scared, heartbroken, and even a bit anxious. My poor baby Edward went overboard. I'm so scared. I'm shaking so much. Let me start from the beginning. As me and Edward got on the ship, we straight away said goodbye to Pellegrino. I was crying so much, I looked an absolute mess. So me and Edward decided to go explore the ship. So me and Edward decided to go explore. We found on the top deck, we were looking and we found 2 sunbeds. It's not normal that we find 2 sunbeds. We normally only find 0, and that's not often. So me and Edward were so happy at that bit. I'm not as happy because I was thinking of Pellegrino going.
I suppose with that one, I guess it's kind of thinking about, well, if I did that before the writing, got the children to record it, would that be a writing prompt? Would that act as the prompt to support with the writing? If I did it after the writing, would that just really pull out? Does the child actually understand what the purpose of that writing was? And again, just how proud would that child be knowing that they've actually achieved something and have got something to show from the writing that they produced as well. So another really nice way of using flipgrid. I'm not going to show the last one because I think I've flipgridded enough here. And then just one more way, I guess, of getting opinions. And again, you could use flipgrid for this. You don't have to, but flipgrid is a very quick way of just getting responses. If you've not heard of how to set flipgrid up, it's very, very simple. All you need to do is go to flipgrid.com. You sign up with an educator login. You set up a class. And then you can post all of that through your classroom. And then all the children do is they click on the link. They sign in with their Google ID, and then there's literally a button that says response, and they just press that and it will start videoing them. So it's so simple. And like I said, I did it with a year 3 class today, and it was very successful. And I've no doubt that you couldn't use it in younger years, year 2, maybe even year 1, and especially if you're in, I don't know what year group some of you are in, but if you're in the lower year group, Seesaw also has video features where you can get pupil voice through that as well. I'm just going to show you this example, and again, I'm sorry I've only got technology examples here, but there's no reason you couldn't use this in any pupil voice that you wanted to achieve. So if you were running school council, for example, you could pose a question to school council over flipgrid. If you wanted to get an opinion about a certain topic, about what do you know about the Egyptians, they could post that on here. So there's so many different ways of getting that voice heard. I'm just going to show you this one, and again, this is just one about, well, how does technology help you learn? What was the purpose of it? And this was this child's response.
Technology is helping me learn because it grows my confidence and independence. It is also helping me learn because I get to do things more on my own with less guidance. It also helps my typing skills.
I suppose you can see there, like, that this isn't something that's going to take like an entire lesson. With flipgrid, you can set the amount of time that you give the children to record. So with this one, it was like you've got a minute, go. And it doesn't need to be like this big thing where you're going to spend the entire lesson recording a flipgrid. Some of them can be 1-minute things. There are others that you probably will want to spend a bit more time over. So the one that you just saw on the previous slide, with the little girl doing the writing one, that was something that probably did take a bit longer because we wanted them to really prepare what they were going to say, and summarize the writing that they've done from that week. So that, yes, that probably would take a lesson because we might get them to make maybe cue cards to think about what they're going to say, or, you know, but what we didn't want to achieve with flipgrid was to get children to just read off of something that they'd got written down. That was what we wanted to try and avoid there, and get them to actually just express their voice and their opinion. And then there's just a couple more examples here about like collaboration beyond the classroom now. So coming out of the classroom a little bit now and thinking more about, well, what happens the minute they leave our doors and they go home, or as we know, during lockdown, that was a big thing where children were kind of on their own. How can children collaborate? How can children tell us that they need help? And obviously we have good communication with our parents, where parents can email in or call us. But also now we have this new platform where children can actually contact us directly when they need to as well. And it's not necessarily direct contact with the teachers, it's about direct contact with their peers as well. So you can see here a few examples that again happened during lockdown and how children were collaborating using the class stream in Google Classroom. So I think there was lots of debate initially about the use of the class stream because teachers were worried about, you know, whether the children could use the stream appropriately. And I think it comes down to expectation of your children. You really need to make sure that you set the expectations of the class stream up from the offset, just like you would when they enter your classroom in September. You set your class charter, you tell them what the expectations are, you tell them the consequences if they don't use the class stream appropriately. The same as you tell them, you know, if they don't do things the way you want them to do it in the classroom, there is some sort of punishment for that, whether they go down the going for gold or they lose house points or whatever it is that your schools decide to do. But this is exactly the same. And I think there is real purpose behind the class stream and actually children being able to help one another out. So you can see here on the first example, we've got a child here that's saying that they're stuck on number 3 of the reading task, for example. And then you can see the other children have responded and said, oh, well, you know, you have to look at this. And you can see that they've helped each other out. And actually that takes the reliance on the teacher, takes it away from us a little bit more. They don't always need us to tell them all the answers. Another one where they needed clarification on what a word meant. They've posted it onto Classroom, somebody else has explained it. And then another really nice one, and just ones that just those are moments that you get when you're sort of looking at the class stream. You can see that this child at the top here said, if anyone wants any help with their work, then you can use mine to have a look at an example. And they've posted up an example to help the other children. And I think there is real purpose with that as well. And there's a really nice community in those sort of Google Classrooms now, where children can collaborate together. And again, like I said, if the streams aren't being used appropriately, then that's our job to kind of guide the children and bring in all of the elements of, you know, e-safety or, you know, the rules of being at school, and like bullying and things like that could all happen on this stream as it could in school. And it's about having those same conversations with children about being online and being in school. And then another couple of examples. Again, this is another Jamboard one that, like we did earlier, but again, just another way of getting pupil voice. So this was me giving children examples about our online learning. What did it look like? What do you like? What didn't you like? And just a nice way to get children to express their opinions on things. Really nice if you're using if you've got kind of pupil voice groups. I know at the moment it's quite difficult to meet your pupil voice groups because of various reasons. And this is a nice way of being able to communicate with them by doing something a bit like this. And then I think I'm pretty much coming to my sort of final few bits now, but I just wanted to kind of share this with you because this is a new thing that we've just started that is a really nice way of being able to collaborate and share ideas with other schools. And what we've done is, again, as I was saying, because it's very difficult for us to be able to meet in person because of bubble closures and being able and making sure that we're sticking to our bubbles. This platform that we're on right now is a really good tool using Google Meet. We've actually teamed up with a school in Birmingham called Feasy Park with our digital leaders this year. And they're going to meet for the very first time over a Google Meet in December. And again, just a really nice way of getting them to talk to other schools about, you know, their experiences of our school and what we can learn from their school and bring back, again, that pupil voice. And what we also did was we've also teamed up with other schools as well. So with the digital leaders, I'm at Cheam Common at the moment. So Cheam Common and Cheam Fields, all of the digital leaders, we've made a separate Google Classroom for those children. And we're actually collaborating together within that classroom. So each week we'll post up a task for them to do, just like the ones I've shown you, either the, like the Jamboard, or we might post a flipgrid, and then they have to try and come up with ideas or collaborate depending on the topic. But again, just another way of being able to collaborate with people outside your own organisations. Really nice way of kind of branching out, especially in current times where we're unable to take children to different places. And again, nothing stopping you from doing that with other classes or other schools, or again, even people outside of Leo as well. So just another nice platform that you could use to collaborate and do that. So I think we've reached the end of the session. I'm just wondering if there's any other questions or anything that you kind of wanted to get out of the session that you feel that I haven't covered. If there is anything else, please put it in the chat and we can chat about that now for the last sort of 10 minutes or so. If not, I will let you get on with your evenings. Lovely. Well, I'm assuming that the silence is good, that I've done my job properly and everything has gone well. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I thought that was hope that was helpful, and you've got something to take back to your schools. If you do have any other questions, please just drop me an email. I have just posted the app guide into the chat. So if you wanted to have a look at any of the things that I have talked about, like Adobe Spark or Flipgrid, please have a look at that and it will give you more information about those. All right. Thank you very much for your time. Have a lovely evening. Bye.